Hey, BookTube. Wait, nope, wait. I wasn't ready for that. Hey, BookTube, it's Kim at Middle of the Book March, and this is my Bookish week for Saturday, February 18th. So I don't know. I can't believe we're already at the middle of February. It's in the mid-50s here in New Hampshire, which is pretty much unheard of. February is usually the most frigid month of the year. I don't get it. I really don't. It's disturbing to me, and I'm afraid that I'm going to wake up one day and it's going to be -2 with 3 feet of snow in my yard, but not yet. So I had a pretty big reading week. I finished, how many books did I finish? 5. I finished 5 books, but don't be impressed by that. No reason to be impressed. I had been reading several of them for a while, so they all just converged at the finish line all at the same time, all in the same week. So let me tell you about them. Oh, you know what? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 2. 2 of them I can't even talk about. So, oh well, I'll just show those to you. I finished Mama Day by Gloria Naylor. This is for my Blind Eye Book Club, and we are not going to start the discussion until next week, so I'm not going to talk about this in detail. And yeah, I wish I could, but I'm not gonna, because I want to talk about it with the group first. But yeah, finished this last week. The other one I can't talk about is Fatty Fatty Boom Boom by Rabia Chaudhry. And this is for the BookTube Prize in Nonfiction. The subtitle is A Memoir of Food, Fat, and Family. So that was a memoir for the BookTube Prize. Can't talk about it. So what can I talk about? I did finish 3 books that I can talk about. The first one is Betty by Tiffany McDaniel. This was for the Critical Chicks book group. And what do I want to say about Betty? I liked it. I thought it was very good, but I didn't love it. I wasn't blown away by this book. This is the story of Betty, who is a young girl, and we follow her until she turns 18. So it's a coming-of-age story. But the kink in the tale is she comes from a poor, biracial family, many children, generational abuse, neglect. There's all the triggers in this book. This is not a positive story. This is not a feel-good coming-of-age story. This is disturbing and frightening and heartbreaking. So Betty is a young girl, and we hear how her parents met. We hear how all of the children in the family are born and how the family is made up. How many children, what all their names are, where they've moved to, how this family stays together, what is in their past. And her father is a Native American and her mother is white. And she is very light white. So there's a very big difference in appearances between her parents. And her school community, the neighborhood, the town that they live in, every town that they've lived in, it is very conspicuous in their disdain for this family, for what they believe is a mixed race family. So Betty, out of the children, this is a picture of who the character was modeled after. Betty in the story is a young, dark-haired, brown-eyed girl. And she doesn't fit in with a lot of her other siblings who have blonde hair and light skin. But this book is kind of, hold on. Okay, that was not a test of the National Broadcast System. That was my husband's cell phone. That was his ring so he can hear it on the job site. Anyway, so where was I? So Betty is autofiction. Tiffany McDaniel wrote this as with her mother as the role model for this character. And she used, as far as I can tell in doing my research, she used her mother's experiences in her childhood and her mother's family as the model for the story. And so what the primary tone in here is generational trauma. What happens to families when it's generational trauma? What does a family do to overcome it, or do they overcome it? And so this is a very harrowing story, and much of it is true. That's what makes it as harrowing as it is. So I wanted to really love this. It seemed like my kind of a book. She writes very well. It's a little overly long. It got repetitive. And one of the things that I didn't like about the way she wrote it is the dad is very much a storyteller, and he's a very good person. He's a good dad. But everything he says comes out in legends and stories and metaphors. And so he never really talks straight to his children. He's not really preparing them for life. He's giving them these legends and stories and hoping that they're going to pick out what they need to live in the world based on that. And it's like, I got sick of that fairly quickly. And I'm not the biggest fan of coming of age stories anyway. So it was very good. I didn't love it, but it was good. And I know a lot of people absolutely love that book. What was the other one I finished? Another one. Oh, Foster by Claire Keegan. I listened to this on audio and it's spectacular. It is a tiny short novella. It took about an hour and a half on audio, if not less than that, because I sped it up just a little tiny bit. So the narrator has an Irish accent, and it is just beautiful on audio. It is the story of a young girl with a mother who is very pregnant, and she is brought by her parents to live with relatives or distant relatives for a summer while her mother is pregnant and going to have the baby. But she goes from a very poverty-stricken family and home into a home that has privileges. They have money and food and cleanliness and hygiene. A lot of the things that she doesn't have at her parents' home and in her family. And it's kind of a story of, does it take money and resources to make a good family? Does it take those resources, do they override or overcome love or a lack of love? How do you send a child back into a home that lacks so much when they've experienced a home that is filled with attention, with caring, with love and resources? And so there's so much to talk about in this little tiny story, and listening to it was just beautiful. I highly recommend the audio. And it has glowing reviews everywhere. They're all true. They're all true. So what was the other one? Okay, the other one I finished was that all of them? Yeah, I think so. Yeah. The last one I finished is The Fire This Time. A New Generation Speaks About Race. And this is an essay collection edited by Jessamine Ward. This was very good. Now, again, it's a collection. Some essays were much stronger than others. There were very long essays and very short essays. And I listened to this on audio. And there were multiple narrators, which I really liked. So there were a few female narrators, a few male narrators, and they took over for whoever was writing that essay. And it was very good. I didn't love every single one, and the collection as a whole did not have similar themes, so it wasn't really curated that way. But there were some very strong essays in here. Let's see, Natasha Trethewey was one. Key C. Lehman, who wrote Heavy, which was excellent. And I wish I had my table of contents, and I forget some of the other essayists, but there were so many that extremely good authors and brilliant people all talking about race and the experiences of Black people in America. It's very good. And so you kind of take collections like that. I've read very few, whether they're poetry, essay, or short story collections that are top 5, that are all the best. And this was no exception, but it's an excellent format, great writers. I do recommend you read it or listen to it. I thought it was excellent on audio. And none of the narrators read it in a way that was halting or bland. They were all very good narrators. So I do recommend that one. So those that I talk about, all of them? Yeah, 2 of them I couldn't talk about. Sorry. But the other 3 I could. And what else? I've got a bunch of stuff that I'm currently reading. Let me tell you about that. I am currently reading a bunch of stuff for the BookTube Prize that I really can't react to at this time. But I am on a really good roll, especially for a short month of February, to get my BookTube Prize books read. The first one is Half American, the epic story of African Americans fighting World War II at home and abroad by Matthew F. Delmont. And it's exactly as the subtitle says. The second one is Paradise Falls, the true story of an environmental catastrophe by Keith O'Brien. This is a book about Love Canal. And I am reading on my Kindle The Story of Russia by Orlando Figes, and I just started that one. Those 3 are all for the BookTube Prize. So far I've finished 2 memoirs, and I'm currently reading 3 history, contemporary history, Russian history books. And the 4th book I'm reading, I'm listening to on audio, and it is Fallen Mountains. It is a novel by Kimmy Cunningham Grant, and I just finished her book, These Silent Woods, a month or so ago, which I loved, and that was also on audio. This one is on audio, and I'm really enjoying it so far, but it's not the same narrator, and this is an earlier novel for her, so I'm actually trying to get used to a different narrator's voice. The narrator on These Silent Woods was Bronson Pinchot from the 80s or 90s, and I forget the name of the TV show he was on, but I talked about that when I reviewed that other novel. And I think that's it. That's enough, right? So you know what I was wondering about? You know, I've said before, and I've commented on other booktubers' videos about reading more slowly and reading more purposefully and not caring so much about quantity, and just slowing myself down and not scheduling so much and not doing so much. And it may not sound like it for this month because I've read a lot and I am reading a lot, but I don't feel the frenzy that I've felt in the past. And what I think I might try to do is I might slowly taper off of using Goodreads. So what I currently do is the day I start a book, I will enter it as currently reading. And then depending on how far I get on a daily basis, you know, if I read 50 pages, I'll put, you know, I've completed 50 pages. And I tend to do that pretty regularly, but I think it may be causing me a little tension and a little stress by even bothering to keep up with it. So what I was thinking of doing is only entering the books when I finish them. So I could have this stack on my nightstand and not even tell anybody I'm currently reading them, and who's gonna know? And so I'm wondering if that might make things a little easier in my brain as to not looking at reading as something I have to record or something I have to keep track of. Especially with physical books, it's very easy to have see the visual pile on my nightstand because that's where I keep them. And in my Kindle, I can just look on my phone or look on my device and see the books that are open that I'm currently reading. So I don't know, I might try that. And I'm going to continue to read exactly the way I'm doing now. I am really thoroughly enjoying reading nonfiction for the BookTube Prize, and I have Group D. And I've really loved it. Especially in the octofinals in the first round, you're never going to love all 6 books, and that is definitely the case. It always is. The octofinals is, you know, the very first time that you're going through all these books, and it's easy to knock off 3 that you think, you know what, these aren't good enough to continue. And then as you get to the semifinals sometimes you're so conflicted because by the time you're reading in the semifinals, it's like those are really good books because they made it that far. They're in the 3rd round out of 4. But I'm still really enjoying the books I'm reading and the nonfiction, and I'm learning a lot. I'm learning so much. So that's such a great after effect, or what am I trying to say? Kind of result of reading nonfiction, when on a regular basis I never read this much nonfiction. So I'm really loving it. That's about it for me, I think. It was a quiet week, but a good one. And I'm going to continue to read exactly like I've been doing. And you will hear about Mama Day probably next weekend. Our discussion will be happening probably midweek next week, and we'll end up February. And then next weekend, I will show you the next book for March and April. I've already done that. It's A Fine Balance by Rohinton Mystery. And we're going to take it over 2 months because it's a little chunky. And yeah, and maybe, no, not this weekend. Probably in March sometime towards the end of the month, I will show you the next group of books that we're going to be reading after the month of April. So that's it for me. Let me know in the comments below if you're interested in any of these books, if you've read any so far, if you've really loved any of them, and I will see you in the next video. Bye, everybody.